Dr. Tae-Sung Kim stood in his laboratory, watching the cell samples under the scanner. The blue light moved across the glass slides, showing tiny human cells doing their daily work. Everything looked normal to him. He had seen these patterns 1,000 times before. The door burst open. Dr. Vexith rushed inside, his forearms waving in the air. The tall insect-like alien's crystal eyes reflected the laboratory lights in a way that made Tae-Sung think something was very wrong. "You must come immediately," Vexith said. His translator device made his voice sound sharp and worried. "I have discovered something terrible about your species." Tae-Sung put down his datapad and followed the Quellan doctor down the bright white corridor of the medical station. They had been working together for 6 months now, ever since humans joined the Galactic Medical Consortium. Vexith was usually calm and precise. Seeing him upset was unusual. They entered the main diagnostic room where several other alien doctors were gathered around a large holographic display. Administrator Thorne was there too, his gray skin looking even paler than normal. The Vrelian official's face showed deep concern. "Dr. Kim," Thorne said slowly, "we need you to explain what we are seeing." Vexith touched a control panel, and the hologram changed. It showed human cells at high magnification. Red markers appeared around several cells that were breaking apart, their contents spilling out in a controlled way. "These are human tissue samples from your recent physical examination," Vexith explained. "As you can see, the cells are destroying themselves. Not from injury or disease, they are doing it on purpose. The process is happening all over your body in every organ system." A Mantillian doctor, her long fingers trembling, spoke up. "We've never seen anything like this in any known species. It appears to be a catastrophic autoimmune disorder. Your cells are committing suicide." Tae-Sung looked at the display and understood immediately what had frightened them. He tried not to smile. "That's apoptosis," he said calmly. "It's normal." "Normal?" Vexith's translator struggled with the word, as if it couldn't believe what it was processing. "You call systematic cellular destruction normal?" "Yes," Tae-Sung said. "Programmed cell death. It happens in all humans all the time. It's one of our most important biological processes." The room went silent. Several doctors looked at each other with confusion and worry. Administrator Thorne's large eyes blinked slowly. "Perhaps you should explain from the beginning," Thorne said carefully. Tae-Sung moved to the control panel and brought up a new set of images. Human cells have built-in programs that tell them when to die. When a cell gets old, damaged, or is no longer needed, it receives signals. These signals activate special proteins inside the cell. The cell then breaks itself down in a clean, organized way. "But why?" a young Quellan medical student asked. "Why not repair the cells instead? We can fix almost any cellular damage. Why would you destroy functional biological material?" "Because sometimes replacement is better than repair," Tae-Sung explained. "When you were developing in your mother's body, you had webbed fingers. Apoptosis removed the cells between your fingers so they could separate. When your immune system learns to recognize threats, apoptosis kills the cells that might attack your own body. When you get an infection, apoptosis prevents damaged cells from becoming cancerous." Dr. Vexith clicked his mandibles together, a sign of deep thought. "How many cells undergo this process?" "In an adult human, between 50 and 70 billion cells die every day through apoptosis." The translator on Vexith's collar made a strange sound, then went quiet for a moment before repeating the number. Several doctors made sounds of shock in their own languages. "Billion?" the Mantillian doctor whispered. "Per day?" "Yes," Tae-Sung confirmed. "And new cells replace them at roughly the same rate. The human body completely rebuilds itself over time. Most of your body's cells are less than 10 years old, even if you're much older than that." Administrator Thorne stood up from his seat. His voice was formal and serious. "Dr. Kim, do all humans have this condition?" "It's not a condition," Tae-Sung said firmly. "It's how we're designed. Every healthy human has apoptosis. Without it, we would die very quickly from cancer or organ failure." "This is impossible," another doctor said. "No species can survive with such massive cellular loss. The energy requirements alone would be—" "Humans eat a lot," Tae-Sung said with a small smile. "Compared to most species our size, we consume quite a bit of food. Now you know one reason why." The door opened and Dr. Ji-won Park entered carrying a medical tablet. She was Tae-Sung's colleague and the other human doctor on the station. She saw the gathered crowd and the holographic display. "Oh," she said, understanding immediately. They found out about apoptosis. You knew about this? Vexith asked her. Of course, Jiwan said. It's basic human biology. We learn about it in medical school. Did you think cells just lived forever? Yes, Vexith said flatly. In Quellan biology, cells are maintained and repaired throughout the organism's life. A cell that forms when we are young can still be functional when we are very old. The same is true for most known species. Your approach is wasteful, Taesung suggested. I was going to say horrifying, Vexith replied. But wasteful works too. Jiwan walked over to the display and expanded the image. It's not wasteful if it keeps us alive. Think of it as maintenance. You repair a machine by replacing broken parts, right? Humans do the same thing, but with living cells. It's actually very efficient. Efficient, Thorne repeated. He did not sound convinced. Dr. Kim, Dr. Park, I must ask you both to submit to additional medical testing. We need to verify that this process is truly normal for humans and not some kind of delayed reaction to space travel or exposure to alien environments. Of course, Taesung agreed. But I can tell you right now what you'll find. Healthy human cells dying and being replaced just like they should be. Over the next few hours, Taesung and Jiwan provided samples and explained the science of apoptosis to the medical council. They showed diagrams of the cellular pathways, the protein signals, the careful way cells packaged their contents before destruction. They explained how immune cells recognized and cleaned up the remains. The alien doctors listened with a mix of fascination and horror. Dr. Vexith asked the most questions, his scientific curiosity fighting against his instinctive disgust at such apparent waste. So this happens in your brain too? Vexith asked at one point. Some brain cells, yes, Jiwan answered. Though neurons are special. Most of them don't divide or get replaced once you're an adult, but the support cells around them definitely undergo apoptosis. Incredible, Vexith muttered, and dangerous. As the day ended, Administrator Thorne dismissed the council but held back Taesung and Jiwan. I want to be clear, Thorne said. I am not accusing humans of hiding information, but this discovery is significant. The medical consortium has protocols for biological variations that could pose risks in shared environments. Are you saying we're a biological hazard? Jiwan asked, her voice sharp. I'm saying we need to understand the full implications, Thorne replied. Cellular death on this scale produces waste products, chemical signals, immune responses. We need to verify that none of this affects other species negatively. Taesung nodded slowly. We'll cooperate fully. But I think you'll find that human biology, while different, isn't dangerous to anyone but ourselves. Perhaps, Thorne said. But until we're certain, I must recommend that all human personnel undergo weekly medical screening. For everyone's safety. After Thorne left, Jiwan turned to Taesung. This is going to be a problem, isn't it? Maybe, Taesung admitted. Or maybe it's an opportunity. The galaxy has hundreds of species, all with similar biology. We're different. That could make us valuable in ways they haven't considered yet. Or it could make us outcasts, Jiwan said quietly. Neither of them knew that within days. A crisis would give them the chance to prove which prediction was correct. The conference room was full of alien doctors and scientists. Taesung stood at the front next to a large holographic projector. Jiwan sat at the control station, ready to switch between images and diagrams. They had 3 hours to convince the Galactic Medical Consortium that human biology wasn't a threat. The room held representatives from 20 different species. Some looked like insects, others like plants, and a few resembled creatures from Earth's oceans. All of them were watching the two humans with careful attention and obvious concern. Dr. Vexith sat in the front row, his crystal eyes reflecting the lights. Next to him was Administrator Thorne, holding a data tablet and looking very official. Behind them, rows of the galaxy's best medical minds waited to judge humanity's biological worth. Thank you for coming, Taesung began. Today we're going to explain how human cells know when to die, why they do it, and why this process is essential for our survival. Jiwan activated the hologram. A single human cell appeared, floating in the center of the room, magnified millions of times. It looked like a small balloon filled with complex machinery. This is a healthy human cell, Taesung continued. Inside it has all the normal parts, a nucleus with DNA, mitochondria for energy, and various other structures. But it also has something special. It has the complete instructions for its own destruction. The hologram changed. Red pathways lit up inside the cell. showing complex chains of proteins and signals. When a cell receives the right signal, these pathways activate, Tae-sung explained. The signal can come from outside the cell, like a message from the immune system. Or it can come from inside, when the cell detects that it's damaged beyond repair. Either way, once the decision is made, the process is very organized. A young Quellen in the third row raised one of her 4 hands. I don't understand. If the cell can detect damage, why not activate repair systems instead? Good question, Ji-won said. She brought up a new image showing 2 cells side by side. This is the key difference between human biology and most of yours. You evolved cellular repair. We evolved cellular replacement. Both strategies work, but they have different advantages. Tae-sung pointed to the damaged cell on the left. When a Quellen cell gets damaged, it activates sophisticated repair mechanisms. These can fix almost anything given enough time and resources. The cell stays alive and keeps functioning. This is very efficient in stable environments. He pointed to the cell on the right. When a human cell gets damaged, it evaluates whether the damage can be fixed quickly. If not, it triggers apoptosis. The cell dies, but in a very controlled way. It packages up all its contents neatly. It signals to nearby immune cells to come clean up. Then new cells divide to replace it. But why? Dr. Vexith asked. His voice showed genuine confusion. Repair seems clearly superior to replacement. In some situations, yes, Ji-won agreed. But consider what happens when a cell is infected by a virus, or when its DNA has major errors that could cause cancer. Repairing that cell means the problem stays in your body. Destroying it and replacing it means the problem is eliminated. The hologram shifted again, showing a human embryo developing in the womb. The image focused on tiny hands with webbed fingers. Here's another example, Tae-sung said. When human babies develop, their hands start as flat paddles. The fingers are connected by tissue. Apoptosis removes the cells between the fingers, separating them. The cells aren't damaged or sick. They're just no longer needed. So they die, and the body recycles their materials. A Mantillian doctor leaned forward. And this happens constantly throughout your life. Every day, Ji-won confirmed. Your skin cells die and fall off, replaced by new ones from below. The cells lining your stomach are replaced every few days because of the harsh acid environment. Red blood cells last about 4 months, then die and get replaced. Even some brain support cells are regularly replaced. This is madness, a doctor from the back row said. The energy cost must be enormous. It is high, Tae-sung admitted. Humans need to eat more than most species our size. We generate more heat. We produce more waste. But we also recover from injuries faster, resist certain diseases better, and rarely get cancer compared to what you might expect. The hologram changed to show cancer cells growing out of control, then showed apoptosis stopping the growth by killing the abnormal cells. Cancer happens when cells ignore the signals that tell them to stop dividing or to die, Ji-won explained. Humans do get cancer, but our bodies have multiple backup systems. If a cell's DNA is badly damaged, apoptosis activates. If a cell starts dividing when it shouldn't, apoptosis activates. It's not perfect, but it catches most problems before they become serious. Dr. Vexith stood up. May I ask a question? He waited for Tae-sung to nod. You mentioned that cells package their contents before dying. What does that mean? I'll show you, Tae-sung said. The hologram zoomed in on a cell beginning apoptosis. Watch carefully. The cell's nucleus began to break apart into neat pieces. The cell membrane formed small bubbles, each containing some of the cell's contents. The whole process was orderly and controlled. The cell breaks itself into these small packages called apoptotic bodies, Ji-won said. Each package has markers on the outside that say "Eat me" to immune cells. White blood cells called macrophages come along, swallow the packages, and recycle everything inside. Very clean, very efficient. And this happens billions of times per day? Vexith asked quietly. 50 to 70 billion times, Tae-sung confirmed. In every healthy adult human right now, billions of cells are dying this way. And billions more are dividing to replace them. It's a constant cycle. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Administrator Thorne spoke. Dr. Kim, this is all very interesting, but I have a practical question. Does this process produce any substances that could be harmful to other species? We've tested that, Ji-won said. She brought up data charts. The chemical signals involved in apoptosis are specific to human cells. They don't affect alien biology, because your cells don't have the receptors to detect them. The waste products are cleaned up internally by our immune systems. Nothing escapes into the environment at levels that could affect anyone else. What about your immune system? Another doctor asked. If it's constantly cleaning up dead cells, it must be extremely active. Yes, Taesung said. Human immune systems are always working. They have to be, to handle apoptosis and everything else. But that's actually an advantage. Our immune systems are always ready to respond quickly to threats. He brought up a comparison chart. Most species have what we call innate immunity. Your bodies recognize general patterns of danger and respond to them. Humans have that too, but we also have adaptive immunity. Our immune systems can learn and remember specific threats, then respond faster and stronger if they see those threats again. Dr. Vexith made a clicking sound with his mandibles. Because your cells are temporary anyway, you can afford to have an aggressive immune system that might accidentally destroy healthy cells occasionally. Exactly, G1 said, impressed. If our immune system makes a mistake and kills some healthy cells, it's not a disaster. Those cells would have died soon anyway, and new ones will replace them. But for species where each cell is maintained for life, an overactive immune system would be catastrophic. The presentation continued for another hour. Taesung and Jiwon explained the molecular details, showed videos of real cells undergoing apoptosis, and answered dozens of questions. Some questions were scientific. Some were philosophical. All of them reflected the aliens' struggle to understand why evolution would choose such a violent solution. Finally, Administrator Thorne called for a break. The doctors filed out, talking among themselves in various languages. Taesung and Jiwon stayed behind, shutting down the hologram. That went better than I expected, Jiwon said quietly. Did it? Taesung asked. Half of them looked horrified, but they listened. They asked questions. They're trying to understand. That's more than I hoped for. Dr. Vexith approached them before they could leave. That was enlightening, he said. I must admit I came to this presentation expecting to recommend strict quarantine for your species. But now I'm not sure what to think. What changed your mind? Taesung asked. Vexith was quiet for a moment. Quellan medicine is the finest in the galaxy. We can repair almost any injury, cure almost any disease, extend life far beyond what nature intended. But we do it by protecting and maintaining each cell as if it were irreplaceable, because for us it is. He looked at the now dark hologram projector. Your approach is the opposite. You treat cells as disposable, temporary, replaceable. It seems wasteful, violent even. But I'm beginning to see that it's also practical, flexible. Perhaps there are situations where your biology would be advantageous. Perhaps we'll find out, Jiwon said. She didn't know how right she was. At that moment, 3 star systems away, a transport ship was losing power and falling toward a frozen planet. The passengers included humans and aliens. The crash would test everything the consortium thought it knew about survival. The emergency call reached the medical station 2 hours later. Administrator Thorne's face appeared on every screen in the facility. All medical personnel report to the emergency bay immediately. We have a crash situation with multiple casualties. The ice planet's surface was white and deadly. Wind blew frozen crystals across broken metal and scattered debris. The transport ship had crashed 3 hours ago, breaking into several pieces across a kilometer of frozen ground. The rescue shuttle landed as close as it could to the main wreckage. Taesung, Jiwon, Dr. Vexith, and a Vrelian emergency doctor named Corvell jumped out into the harsh wind. They wore protective suits, but the cold still bit at any exposed skin. Medical readings show 15 survivors, Corvell shouted over the wind. His 4 legs moved steadily over the ice. 3 humans, 12 aliens, most are in critical condition. They reached the largest piece of wreckage and climbed inside. The ship's interior was dark and cold. Emergency lights flickered weakly. Bodies lay everywhere, some moving, some still. Triage protocol, Vexith said, activating his medical scanner. Most critical patients first. Corvell, check the Vrelian ambassador. He's your responsibility. Taesung scanned the room and saw a human in a pilot's uniform leaning against a wall. The man's face was pale and covered in sweat despite the cold. Blood stained his jacket on the left side. Captain Young Ho Choi, the man said when Taesung approached. His voice was weak but clear. Transport pilot. Got about 20 people off this ship before we hit. Don't talk, Taesung said, scanning him quickly. The results made him freeze. Jiwon, I need you here now. Jiwon rushed over. She looked at Taesung's scanner and her eyes went wide. How are you even conscious? Young-ho tried to smile. Lots of practice being stubborn. Your left lung is collapsed, Ji-won said, already pulling out medical supplies. You have 3 broken ribs. Internal bleeding. Massive tissue damage. You should be dead. Not yet, Young-ho said. Dr. Vexith approached, drawn by the urgency in Ji-won's voice. He looked at the human pilot, then at the scanner readings. His translator made a sound like confusion. This is impossible, Vexith said. With these injuries, he should not be able to speak. He should not be conscious. How is this human still functional? Adrenaline, Taesung said, starting emergency treatment. His body is flooding with stress hormones. They're keeping him awake and suppressing pain. It won't last forever, but right now it's keeping him alive. But a collapsed lung, Vexith insisted. For a Quellan, that would mean immediate loss of consciousness and death within minutes. Humans have 2 lungs, Ji-won explained while working. If one fails, the other can keep us alive. Not comfortably and not for long, but it's enough time to get help. Redundancy, remember? Across the wreckage, Corvell shouted for help. The ambassador is dying. I need assistance. Vexith hesitated, looking between the human pilot and the Vrelian ambassador. Ji-won made the decision for him. Go, she said. We can stabilize Young-ho. The ambassador needs immediate intervention or he won't survive the next hour. Vexith ran to where Ambassador Keller lay. The Vrelian diplomat's chest was crushed, his breathing shallow and irregular. Corvell was already working, but the situation looked desperate. Multiple organ damage, Corvell reported. His cellular repair systems are overwhelmed. The damage is spreading faster than his body can fix it. Vexith looked at the readings. In Vrelian biology, each cell was precious and long-lived. When cells were damaged this severely, they tried to repair themselves even when repair was impossible. The damaged cells kept functioning incorrectly, making things worse. An idea formed in Vexith's mind. A terrible, desperate idea based on what he had learned about human biology. Dr. Kim, Vexith called out, I need your help. Taesung left Young-ho with Ji-won and joined Vexith. He looked at the ambassador's condition and understood immediately. The damaged cells are killing him, Taesung said quietly. Yes, Vexith agreed. In Vrelian physiology, cells attempt to repair themselves even when badly damaged. But these cells cannot be repaired. They are producing toxic compounds. They are signaling incorrectly to nearby tissue. They are causing cascade failures throughout his system. If he were human, Taesung said slowly, his body would trigger apoptosis in the damaged cells. They would die cleanly and the healing process could begin with fresh tissue. But he is not human, Corvell said sharply. Vrelian cells do not have apoptosis. Our biology does not work that way. What if we could make it work that way? Vexith asked. Both doctors stared at him. Corvell's face showed shock and anger. Taesung showed understanding and concern. You want to induce programmed cell death in a species that doesn't have it, Taesung said. That's never been done. We have no idea if it would even work. The alternative is watching him die, Vexith replied. His cellular repair cannot keep pace with the damage. Standard treatment is failing. We need a different approach. This is insane, Corvell protested. You want to kill his cells on purpose? That's not medicine. That's murder. It's maintenance, Taesung said quietly. We would be removing damaged parts so healthy parts can regrow. Like pruning a plant. Vrelians are not plants, Corvell shouted. But they are dying, Vexith said softly. Ambassador Keller has perhaps 2 hours left with standard treatment. Probably less. Dr. Kim, do you have compounds that could trigger something like apoptosis in alien cells? Taesung thought carefully. I have synthetic proteins that activate apoptosis pathways in human cells. They work by triggering the same stress signals that damaged cells would produce naturally. In theory, any cell with mitochondria and similar basic structures might respond to them. In theory, Corvell repeated bitterly. Yes, Taesung admitted. In theory. I can't promise it will work. I can't promise it won't make things worse, but Dr. Vexith is right. Without something radical, the ambassador will die. Vexith looked down at Ambassador Keller. The Vrelian's breathing was getting weaker. His skin color was changing to an unhealthy gray. Time was running out. I am the senior medical officer here, Vexith said. The decision is mine. Dr. Kim, prepare your compounds. We will attempt this. This will destroy your career if it fails, Corvell warned. Better my career than his life, Vexith replied. Taesung worked quickly, mixing compounds and calculating doses. This had never been tested. He was guessing based on cellular biology and hoping the fundamental principles would work across species. This will target cells showing signs of severe stress, Tae-sung explained as he prepared the injection. It should trigger their self-destruct mechanisms. If it works, the damaged tissue will break down and the body's natural healing can take over. And if it doesn't work, Corvell asked, then we'll know quickly, Tae-sung said grimly. Ready? Vexith nodded. Tae-sung administered the injection directly into the damaged tissue around the ambassador's crushed chest. Then they waited. For 5 minutes, nothing happened. The ambassador's vital signs continued to decline. Corvell shook his head in disgust and started to turn away. Then the monitors changed. The toxic compounds in Keller's blood started to decrease. His breathing became slightly easier. The cascade of failing systems began to slow. It's working, Vexith breathed. Tae-sung was scanning the damaged tissue. The severely damaged cells are breaking down. Not all at once, gradually, in a controlled way. And look here. The cells around them are beginning to activate repair and regrowth protocols. Impossible, Corvell whispered, looking at his own scanner to confirm. Not impossible, Vexith said. Just unprecedented. The human approach is working. By removing the damaged cells, we're giving his body a chance to heal properly. They worked for another hour, stabilizing the ambassador and monitoring the effects of the treatment. By the time they finished, Keller's vital signs had improved dramatically. He was still critical, but he would live. Ji-won called over from where she had been treating Young-ho. How's the ambassador? Stable, Vexith replied. Thanks to human medical theory. How is your pilot? Stable, Ji-won said. Thanks to human biological redundancy. He should make a full recovery. The rescue continued. More ships arrived with additional medical personnel. All the survivors were eventually evacuated to proper medical facilities. The human passengers all survived. Some of the aliens did not, their bodies unable to handle the catastrophic injuries. On the flight back to the medical station, Dr. Vexith sat next to Tae-sung. The Quellan doctor was quiet for a long time. I have been a doctor for 200 years, Vexith finally said. I have seen thousands of patients, studied hundreds of species. I thought I understood medicine. But today, I learned that everything I know is based on one way of thinking, one approach to biology. And now, Tae-sung asked. Now I wonder what other possibilities we have been missing, Vexith said. If human biology can teach alien cells to die, what else can it teach us? Tae-sung looked out the window at the stars. I guess we'll find out together. 3 months after the crash rescue, the Galactic Medical Consortium held a special assembly. The large auditorium was filled with doctors, scientists, and medical officials from across the galaxy. At the center of the stage stood Tae-sung, Ji-won, and a new arrival, Dr. Haerin Yoon, a human immunologist. The Terran Resilience Project had been approved. Funding secured. Research facilities assigned. Human biology was no longer seen as a curiosity or a threat. It was seen as a potential revolution in medical science. Not everyone was happy about it. Professor Zathera, a Mantillian academic with 4 centuries of experience, stood at the debate podium. Her long fingers gestured sharply as she spoke. I must protest this project, she said. Her voice carried authority and conviction. Yes, humans have shown some interesting biological features, but we cannot ignore their medical history. They have only been practicing advanced medicine for a few hundred years. Before that, their methods were primitive and often harmful. She brought up historical images from Earth, ancient medical practices that looked barbaric by modern standards, bloodletting, trepanation, untested surgeries. The human medical record is filled with mistakes and failures. Why should we trust a species that took so long to understand basic biology? Haerin stood to respond. She was younger than most of the doctors in the room, but her voice was confident. Professor Zathera is correct about our history, Haerin said. Humans made many mistakes learning medicine. But we learned quickly because we had to. Our biology is complex and difficult to understand. We didn't have the advantage of stable, predictable cellular systems. We had to figure out how to work with aggressive immune responses, rapid healing, and constant cellular turnover. She brought up her own data. I study the human immune system. Let me show you why it's relevant to this discussion. A hologram appeared showing a human white blood cell encountering a pathogen. The cell immediately attacked. engulfing and destroying the invader. Most galactic species have innate immunity, Hayrin explained. Your immune systems recognize general patterns of danger and respond to them. This is efficient and reliable. But humans have something additional: adaptive immunity. The hologram changed, showing immune cells learning and remembering the pathogen. Human immune systems can learn. When we encounter a new disease, special cells study it, remember it, and create specific defenses against it. If we see that disease again, even years later, our immune system responds immediately with a targeted attack. A Quellan doctor in the front row raised his hand. But why would evolution create such a complex system? Pattern recognition should be sufficient. It should be, Tai-Sung agreed, standing to join Hayrin. On a stable world with consistent threats, pattern recognition is perfect. But Earth was never stable. New diseases appeared constantly. Pathogens evolved rapidly. Humans needed an immune system that could adapt as fast as the threats changed. Ji-Won added more information. And because our cells are constantly dying and being replaced, we can afford to have an aggressive immune system. If our immune cells make mistakes and destroy some healthy tissue, those cells will be replaced soon anyway. For species with long-lived cells, that kind of collateral damage would be catastrophic. Professor Zethera was not convinced. This all sounds impressive, but you're asking us to fundamentally change how we practice medicine based on the biology of one species from one world. A world you yourselves describe as hostile and dangerous. Yes, Dr. Vexith said, standing suddenly. The Quellan doctor had been quiet until now. That is exactly what we're asking. And I support it. The room went silent. Vexith was one of the most respected doctors in the consortium. His opinion carried weight. I have practiced medicine for 2 centuries, Vexith continued. In that time, galactic medicine has been largely stagnant. We have perfected the treatment of predictable conditions in stable biology. But when faced with the unexpected, we often fail. I saw this at the crash site. He displayed the case records from Ambassador Keller. This patient should have died. By every medical principle I knew, he was beyond saving. But human medical theory, applied carefully, saved his life. Not by following our established protocols, but by breaking them. Since then, Vexith said, we have used human-inspired treatments on 47 more patients, cases where traditional medicine had failed. The success rate has been remarkable, not perfect but far better than doing nothing. The debate continued for hours. Arguments for and against human medical approaches filled the auditorium. Some doctors were excited by the possibilities. Others were frightened of changing established practices. All of them understood that this was a pivotal moment for galactic medicine. Administrator Thorne finally called for a vote. The Terran Resilience Project would continue, but with strict oversight and careful documentation of all experimental treatments. As the assembly ended, Tai-Sung felt both relief and exhaustion. They had won the argument, but barely. The medical community was still divided. That evening, as Tai-Sung was preparing to leave the station, an urgent message came through. Ji-Won found him in his quarters, her face pale. We have a situation, she said. A colony ship called the Celestial Harvest. They picked up some kind of pathogen from an asteroid field. It's spreading fast. How bad? Tai-Sung asked. 3,000 dead in 72 hours. 20,000 people on board representing 40 different species. And here's the concerning part. The humans on board are still healthy. Tai-Sung grabbed his medical kit. Let's go. The emergency medical team assembled quickly. Tai-Sung, Ji-Won, Hayrin, and Dr. Vexith boarded a fast shuttle and headed for the Celestial Harvest's last known position. During the flight, they received more data about the pathogen. They're calling it shadow rot, Hayrin said, reviewing the medical reports. It attacks cellular repair mechanisms. For species with long-lived cells and sophisticated repair systems, it's almost instantly fatal. The pathogen causes the repair mechanisms to malfunction and produce toxic compounds instead of fixing damage. But humans are surviving? Vexith asked. Not just surviving, Ji-Won said. According to the reports, the human colonists are still functional. Some are sick, but none have died. They're actually helping care for the other species. Tai-Sung understood immediately. Apoptosis. The pathogen attacks repair mechanisms, so it's deadly to species that rely on cellular repair. But human cells don't try to repair when badly damaged. They just die and get replaced. Exactly, Hayrin confirmed. Infected human cells are triggering apoptosis before the pathogen can spread. The infection never gets a chance to take hold because the infected cells destroy themselves. Maintenance mode, Vexith said quietly. Your biology treats this deadly pathogen as routine cellular damage. Can we use this? Ji-Wan asked. Can we teach alien cells to respond the same way? That's what we need to find out, Tae-sung said. When they arrived at the Celestial Harvest, the situation was worse than they had imagined. The ship was in quarantine, unable to dock at any station for fear of spreading the infection. The crew had sealed off infected sections, but the pathogen was still spreading. They were met by Byung-ho Kang, a human colonist who had been a military medic before retiring. He looked tired but alert. Thank God you're here, Byung-ho said. I've been doing what I can, but I'm not equipped for this. We have dozens dying every hour. Show us the infected areas, Tae-sung said, and tell us everything you've observed. As they walked through the ship, Byung-ho explained what he had seen. The alien colonists get infected and within hours they're gone. Their cells seem to turn against them. But us humans, we get sick for a day or two, then recover. I've been collecting data on infected human cells. He showed them his makeshift laboratory. For someone with limited equipment, he had done impressive work. Look at this, Byung-ho said, displaying cellular images. When a human cell gets infected, it recognizes something is wrong. The cell receives stress signals. Those signals trigger apoptosis. The cell dies before the pathogen can reproduce inside it. Hyren studied the data carefully. The pathogen is triggering the same cellular stress responses that normally activate apoptosis. In human cells, this is exactly what's supposed to happen. The cell detects it can't be repaired, so it self-destructs. But alien cells don't have that option. They try to repair themselves, and the pathogen uses that against them. Can we give them that option? Vexith asked. Tae-sung thought carefully. We used synthetic compounds to trigger apoptosis-like responses in Ambassador Keller. That was localized to damaged tissue. This would be different. We'd need to give infected cells the ability to self-destruct throughout the entire body. Is it possible? Ji-Wan asked. In theory, yes, Hyren said. We create a treatment that makes alien cells respond to the pathogen's stress signals the same way human cells do. Infected cells would trigger self-destruct. The pathogen would lose its hosts. The infection would clear, but, Vexith prompted. But it would permanently change their cellular biology, Tae-sung said. Any alien who receives this treatment would gain human-style apoptosis, not just for this infection forever. Their cells would have the ability to self-destruct when damaged. They would age differently, heal differently, live differently. The room was quiet. This wasn't just a medical treatment. The medical bay was busy with activity. Survivors from the crash were being treated in various rooms. Dr. Vexith and Tae-sung were monitoring Ambassador Keller's recovery when the emergency alarm sounded. Code red in room 7, a voice announced over the speakers. Patient in cardiac arrest. All available medical staff respond. Room 7 was where they had placed Do-eun Lee, a young human engineer from the crash transport. She had seemed stable when they brought her in, but crash injuries could be unpredictable. Tae-sung ran. Ji-Won was already in the room when he arrived, along with several alien doctors who stood frozen in confusion. Tae-eun lay on the medical bed, her vital signs flatlined on the monitors. How long has she been in arrest? Tae-sung demanded. 2 minutes, one of the alien nurses said. We called for you immediately. There was nothing we could do. Ji-Won was already positioning her hands on Daeun's chest. Stand back, she ordered. She pressed down hard on the sternum, compressing the chest with significant force. Then she released and pressed again. Over and over, steady and strong, Dr. Corvell, the Vrelian doctor, made a sound of horror. Stop, you're going to break her ribs. Probably, Ji-Won said without stopping. But it's better than being dead. Tae-sung, I need you on airway. Tae-sung moved to Daeun's head and began providing rescue breaths while Ji-Won continued chest compressions. The rhythm was fast and aggressive. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. 30 more compressions, 2 more breaths. This is barbaric, Corvell said. You're causing massive trauma. In Vrelian medicine, such force would shatter the entire skeletal structure. Human bones are strong. Ji-Won panted between compressions. They can take it. And right now we need to keep blood moving to her brain. Dr. Vexith arrived and immediately understood what was happening. He pulled out his scanner and watched the readings. What he saw fascinated and horrified him. Her cells are in severe distress, Vexith reported. Massive oxygen deprivation. But look at this. The cells in non-essential areas are beginning to shut down, redirecting what little oxygen remains to the brain and heart. Protective shock response, Taesung explained quickly between breaths. The body prioritizes vital organs. Everything else goes into minimum power mode. 5 minutes, Jiwon said, her arms starting to tire. Taesung, you take compressions. I'll handle medications. They switched positions smoothly. Taesung took over the chest compressions while Jiwon prepared emergency drugs. She injected them directly into Dayun's bloodstream. 7 minutes, someone said. Corvell shook his head. After 7 minutes without heartbeat, brain death is inevitable in every species we know. Even if you restart her heart, she will be gone. Not if we keep blood flowing manually, Jiwon said. The compressions are maintaining minimal circulation. Her brain is getting some oxygen. Not much, but maybe enough. 10 minutes, Taesung said. His arms were burning with effort, but he maintained the rhythm. Compress, compress, compress. Steady and strong. Vexith watched his scanner. This is extraordinary. Look at the cellular activity. Damaged cells throughout her body are triggering apoptosis. They're destroying themselves rather than trying to survive in a damaged state. And in areas where oxygen is reaching, stem cells are beginning to mobilize. She's in maintenance mode, Taesung said. Her body is clearing out damage and preparing to rebuild. If we can restart her heart, she might actually recover. 12 minutes, Jiwon said. She looked at Taesung. 1 more round of medications, then we try defibrillation. She injected another dose of cardiac stimulants. Taesung continued compressions for another minute, then stepped back. Jiwon placed the defibrillator paddles on Da-eun's chest. Clear, she said. The shock made Da-eun's body jump. The monitor stayed flat. Jiwon immediately resumed compressions. Again, she said after 30 more compressions. Clear, another shock. Another jump. Still nothing. Once more, Taesung said. Then we call it. Jiwon positioned the paddles for the 3rd time. Clear, the shock delivered. For a moment, nothing. Then a single beep from the monitor. Then another. Then a steady rhythm. We have a pulse, Jiwon said, her voice shaking with relief. The room erupted in activity. Alien doctors who had been watching in shock now rushed to help. They connected monitoring equipment, adjusted medication drips, and stabilized Dayun's vital signs. 13 minutes, Corvell said quietly. She was clinically dead for 13 minutes. And she's alive, barely, Jiwon said. She was exhausted, leaning against the wall. But yes, alive. Over the next hours, they monitored Da-eun carefully. Her body was indeed in maintenance mode, as Taesung had described. Damaged cells continued to die through apoptosis, while healthy cells worked to replace them. Her injuries were severe, but her biology was fighting back with everything it had. Dr. Vexith gathered the medical staff for a briefing in the evening. The room was full of alien doctors, all wanting to understand what they had witnessed. Today we saw human resilience in action, Vexith began. Dr. Kim, would you explain what makes this possible? Taesung stood up, still tired from the day's events.
Humans have multiple features that allow us to survive severe trauma.
First is redundancy. We have 2 lungs, 2 kidneys, paired blood vessels. If one system fails, backups take over. He brought up a hologram showing human anatomy. Second is our high pain tolerance and shock responses. We can remain conscious and functional through injuries that would incapacitate most species. This is because our ancestors needed to escape predators even when wounded. Third is apoptosis, Jiwon added. When human tissue is severely damaged, those cells die quickly and cleanly. This prevents damaged cells from causing further problems. It lets the body focus resources on healing rather than trying to repair the irreparable. And fourth, Taesung continued, is our healing response. Human tissue repairs quickly, though not always perfectly. We form scar tissue, which is weaker than original tissue but forms fast. We prioritize speed over quality because in our evolutionary history, fast healing meant survival. A Mantillian doctor raised her hand. But this approach seems so crude. You accept imperfect healing. You tolerate pain. You let cells die rather than repair them. How is this superior to precise cellular maintenance? It's not superior, Taesung admitted. It's just different. Your approach works wonderfully in stable conditions with predictable injuries. But humans evolved on Earth, which was not stable or predictable. We needed systems that worked fast, worked with limited resources, and kept working even when badly damaged. Your biology is elegant, Ji-Wan said. Ours is robust. Both have value in different situations, Corvell spoke up. I watched you break that woman's ribs to save her life. I thought it was madness, but now I understand. Human bones are designed to break and heal. Better a broken rib than a dead patient. Exactly, Taesung said. Humans accept temporary damage to prevent permanent death. We sacrifice parts to save the whole. It's the same principle as apoptosis, just on a larger scale. Dr. Vexith stood and addressed the room. I have been thinking about what we witnessed today. Human biology seems violent and wasteful to us because our own biology is gentle and precise. But I am beginning to see that humans come from a harsh world that shaped them into survivors. He turned to Taesung. You mentioned Earth's evolutionary history. Tell us about your home world. Taesung thought about how to explain. Earth has had 5 major extinction events. Asteroid impacts, volcanic supereruptions, ice ages, atmospheric changes. Millions of species died. The ones that survived were adaptable, tough, and quick to recover. Humans are descended from those survivors. Plus, Ji-Wan added, Earth has always been full of predators, parasites, and diseases. Our ancestors faced threats every day. Species that couldn't handle injury, infection, or trauma didn't survive to pass on their genes. The room was quiet as the alien doctors absorbed this information. Their own worlds had been stable, nurturing places where life evolved slowly and carefully. They had never needed the kind of brutal resilience that humans possessed. A death world, someone whispered. We don't call it that, Taesung said with a slight smile. We just call it home. The meeting ended, but the conversations continued. Alien doctors discussed what they had learned with fascination and concern. The medical consensus was shifting. Humans weren't biologically defective. They were biologically specialized for survival in conditions that would kill most other species. Late that night, Taesung checked on Da-Un. She was awake, which was remarkable after what she had been through. Hey, Doc, she said weakly. I heard I died for a bit. 13 minutes, Taesung confirmed. How do you feel? Like I was dead for 13 minutes, Da-Un said. But I'm still here. That's got to count for something. It counts for a lot, Taesung said. You're going to be fine. Your body is already repairing itself. Maintenance mode, Da-Un said with a small smile. I remember learning about apoptosis in school. Never thought it would save my life. That's what it's for, Taesung said. Every day, billions of times keeping us alive. As he left her room, Taesung thought about the future. The galaxy was beginning to understand human biology. Some were frightened by it. Some were fascinated. But all of them were paying attention. Humanity had proven they could survive. Now the question was, could they teach others to do the same?